Hi, I'm Dr. Bruce Rippee. Welcome to the Scientific Advisor Board. We like to bake wellness into the fabric of your culture. CEOs and CFOs and so forth can get in touch with me, Dr. Bruce at brentmed.com. We want to make wellness part of the conversation that you have in your enterprise. Okay, it helps with presenteeism, absenteeism, and so forth. All right, I want to share my screen with you today because I get a lot of these questions. Did the coronavirus happen in a lab? Did it happen? What conspiracy theories are going on there? Because obviously this is what's being talked about around the water cooler, right? It's what happens in the break room. I think. Most of the time what happens is the first thing that people were told was what they latched on to. When that evolved into new science, new data, people were letting other people down by actively lying and causing misinformation on their own, and then calling everything else misinformation or disinformation. One has an agenda based to it and is directly nefarious, and the other one means I just didn't know any better, right? I think that a lot of this happens, but that's not our goal today. I just want to show you today that whenever we're poo-pooing someone else's thoughts, instead of saying, wow, tell me about that. Where'd you get that information? That might be pretty interesting. I would like for you to look at this one. Wherever you fall on this, we don't know, by the way. The answers are not hard and set because science always looks for empirical truth. That's what science does. What happens if we add heat? What happens if we add cold to the process? What happens if we add ashwagandha, whatever, right? That it's not the same. There is no such thing that says, I'm the science, you need to deal with that. Except this first paper, I'm going to kind of show it to you. I think it's something you need to look at. So let's look at this, right? So this was happening in February 19th of 2020. Statement in support of scientists, public health professionals, medical professionals, China combating the COVID-19. We are public health scientists who have closely followed. You need to realize that we're important, blah, blah, blah. We've watched as the scientists, public health professionals, and medical professionals, and particularly have worked diligently and effectively to rapidly do all these things. Their effort has been remarkable. You can read it yourself if you want to slow this down. We signed this statement in solidarity with all science and health professionals in China are saving lives and so forth and blah, 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 blah. And then basically this is a plea for other scientists to please join us and sign this because we want you to know that scientists from multiple countries have analyzed the genomes of the causative agents of this particular thing. And they overwhelmingly conclude that this coronavirus originated in wildlife. And let's look at this. I mean, these are really important people. And if you were to look on them, many of them are very high level researchers. Now, there's also chief medical science officers that may mediate what can and can't be said by very good scientists. And I believe that that is a political position, and that's what was being handed down here. So let's take a look at the rest of it. Let's just go to the next piece of this, all right? So this is also in Nature, and you can read this up here if you want to. Hopefully you can see all of that on my screen. This is just another article if you want to go to and actually look at it. But here's one of those things, notable features of SARS-CoV-2 genome. Now, this is going to have a lot of big words to it, but basically what they say is the SARS-CoV-2 appears to be optimized for binding to the human ACE2 receptor. The spike protein of SARS-CoV-2 has a functional polybasic furin cleavage at the S1, S2 boundary. We kind of heard some of those about the 12 nucleotides and blah, 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 right? Which additionally lead to the predicted acquisition of 3 O-linked glycans around the site. Meaning they talk about the notable features, and I want to be able to say all this. They talk about all the notable features, and then you start to get to basically the theories of SARS-CoV-2. It is improbable that SARS-CoV-2 emerged through laboratory manipulation of related SARS-CoV-2 coronavirus. RBD, you want to think of that as that's the piece of genetic strand of a spike. That's the crazy one. That's the one that constantly mutates and changes. It's the crazy uncle that shows up on a Harley with the big beard, right? All right, it's optimized for binding, as noted, the RBD, that's that piece of genetic material. The SARS-CoV-2 is optimized for binding to the human with an efficient solution different from those previously predicted. And then they say, if we were going to make something like this, we would have used a beta receptor. We would have used something different. It's likely that bats serve as a reservoir host for its progenitor to SARS-CoV-2. And these are important. These are articles that are out in Nature, right? And then all of a sudden, an oops happens. This happened 23 November, about a week ago from when I'm recording this. UK experts helped shut down COVID lab leak theory weeks after being told it might be true. Whoops. Sir Patrick Vallance among scientists behind the paper. You can see him there with all the important people in the UK if you want to look at pictures. And I'm not going to pay for this article here for this. I just want to let you know top scientists, including Sir Patrick Vallance, were warned that COVID-19 could have evolved in laboratory animals, but collaborated in a paper which shut down the lab link theory. I have a reason for telling you all of this. All right, let's take a look at where did Dr. Bruce get this one. That's 23. So let's go up here. Oops, this is the United States Senate. This is much more recent, October of 2022. This is a minority oversight staff. Let's scroll on down. Now you can go all the way down and read all of these things if you want to. I would suggest that you do that if that's an interest to you. But they basically come to some, well, let's just call it real research. The WIV is an epicenter of advanced coronavirus research that was designed to predict and prevent future pandemics from collecting, characterizing, and experimenting on high-risk coronavirus and the potential spillover to humans. We were told that was not true. There was no gain-of-function research going on there at all. Well, here's what we know to be true. In the aftermath of this, we knew that, remember, there was a SARS-CoV-1. You don't, because the footprint was mostly in Asia. But there was a SARS-CoV-1, and we wanted to research that. So WIV researchers actively sampled bats. They collected more than 15,000 samples from bats. Following field collection, samples were transported to Wuhan, where they were screened for the presence of coronaviruses. And then the WIV conducted these experiments in these BSL-2 and BSL-3 laboratories. These are, by the way, very good, secure laboratories. That's what they were supposed to be. Then we hear this, senior coronavirus researcher, and you've probably read about that, infected civets and humanized mice, meaning there was gain-of-function research being actively looked at. And then you can kind of look at the rest of the stuff if you want to. So spoiler alert, they've now come out and basically said, this came from, well, let's put it this way. Based on the analysis of public available information, and they have to say that, and I'm proud of them for doing that. You want to say that, right? On public available, it appears reasonable to conclude that the COVID-19 pandemic was, more likely than not, the result of a research-related incident. New information made publicly available and independently verifiable could change this assessment. However, the hypothesis of a natural zoonotic origin no longer deserves the benefit of the doubt. So you could say that maybe those people were just making a mistake. If you want to be extremely generous, you could say they just didn't know and they were reaching out to say something to keep the public calm. If you wanted to be perhaps less generous, you might, or even stingy, you might say they were doing it on purpose. They didn't want people to know that there are labs around the world that are actually creating these super, mega, ultra horrible things. And the Americas, including North America, we're providing them funding. Now, this one happens to be in Wuhan, something leaked, and you got a biological weapon that went throughout the world. It's up to you where you take your morality and your distinctions from there. But you can, please draw your own conclusions. But I wanted to let you know that here's the thing. Every time we've heard the craziest, weirdest, oh, there's no way that that's possibly there, my suggestion to all of you that are hearing that from your employees or from each other, talk to them intimately. Actually say, wow, unpack that for me. Would you let me know what that is? Or have someone else speak to them. If you're busy, have one of your minions speak to them and get a report. Wow, that's interesting. You got that from there, huh? Because that's very useful information during an employee development meeting. And the employee development meeting can always come back to, hey, what if this is true? What do you think you can do for you? What could we do to boost our own immune systems and make us healthier so that we would be able to withstand this attack, whatever the attack is? Fantastic question. Please start asking those questions. If you want to know how I would address it or how I can help, get in touch with me. Dr. Bruce at brintmed.com. It's that easy. Lots of people do. We'll set up a Zoom call and I'll just ask you questions. DRBRUCE at BRINTMED.com. I'd love to speak with you about it. I also have some great, well, in fact, we have this warehouse of information that we have from all of the executives that we've worked with. Our goal, though, is to bake wellness into the fabric of your culture. And if you'll do that, everybody starts thinking you care for them a lot more, because you do. It makes a big difference. All right, I will talk to you next time on the Strategic Advisor Board. In the meantime, be an example.